Hello, and welcome back to Comedy Means Business. In entertainment these days, multi-hyphenates are a dime a dozen. You know the typical designations: actor, filmmaker, comedian, best-selling author, and activist, but very seldom do you see Juilliard-trained musician on that list. Still, it's a big part of the resume of today's guest, Isabel Hagen, an accomplished comedian who in her time away from comedy clubs is pursuing endeavors like touring with the indie rock band Vampire Weekend. Beginning her musical education at a very young age, Isabel first toyed with stand up after developing repetitive stress syndrome, which forced her to take a break from her musical practice. She was named a Just for Laughs new face in 2019, and this year made her feature directorial debut with On a String, a New York dramedy in which she also stars, which draws on the full range of her experiences as a longtime freelance violist. We were first to tell you about the project, which earlier this year won a Best Screenplay award in its Tribeca premiere, cementing Hagen as an artist to watch closely on three fronts. In the following podcast, we discuss this big win and the makings of a uniquely multifaceted artistic career. Isabel, welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Belated congratulations on your Tribeca win for On a String. I wanted to ask about that. What did it mean to you to receive that honor for your first feature at a festival of that caliber?
Thank you. Yeah, it won Best Screenplay, and I mean, it meant so much. The screenplay was probably the thing I was most proud of about the film. It's something I'd been just writing and working on for so long, and I knew at least the script was good, so it felt validating to get that specific award. Also, I saw a lot of the other films in my category, and I was like, I don't think we have a chance for winning like best director or whatever. I was like, but maybe screenplay. Maybe I could get that one. So
Yeah, that's a good one. Screenplay is kind of everything. So, to what extent is this autobiographical? Obviously, you name the character Isabel, and it draws on your experiences like freelancing musically. But like, can you talk about that?
yeah, it's not like a direct this story from A to B happened, but a lot of the scenarios in the film are inspired by things that I dealt with as a freelance violist, just all the weird situations where I get to be a fly on the wall or different personalities I had to deal with and things you don't think about when you're going into music, like that you're going to have to face other than just worrying about playing music.
Yeah.
And then, the brother character is played by my actual brother. So there is like, a direct element there as well. But a lot of
hmm
things I took creative liberty with.
Was there a point when you like set that down, that sort of side of what you were doing? You don't freelance anymore, right?
Well, no, I kind of I don't freelance that much anymore. I still definitely play for
Yeah,
a
yeah.
living, and I'll occasionally, if I'm free, I'll do a wedding if someone asks me, and it's in the park near my house.
Oh
Like, why
wow.
not? But I'm not pushing to get that type of work.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say, during COVID when everything shut down, I had just done the Tonight Show as a comedian. And so I was
Yeah,
feeling like, well, if things come back to normal, I think I could probably make a go of it just focusing on, touring and headlining as a comic. And I don't really love this work as a violist. So maybe I'm going to start saying no to more things as
yeah.
things open up. And that's what happened.
Well, I want to get to those different aspects of your career, but with the film, like, how did you find the transition from performing on stage in these different capacities to being behind the camera, in front of the camera in this way with the film?
It's so different. I mean, there's certain skills as a performer on stage that you can take with you for everything, command of a room as a director and, making snap game time decisions, which comedians often have to do on stage when things aren't going as you expected.
hmm
Um, but, it's a lot more like you're creating all these tiny little pieces in a film that you then put together later. So it's less immediately satisfying, or at least that was my experience with this one. It was sort of like, okay, we're building all these little blocks, and then in the editing room, that's where it kind of like sung. We got it to sing and,
Yeah,
and got everything to work together. And that's where you kind of get that same feeling that you get as a comedian kind of immediately on stage when people are laughing.
yeah. It's not easy for independent filmmakers today. I was curious, obviously it's not like a huge budget movie, but how did you find the financing and get the project off the ground?
Yeah, I started with just a big Kickstarter campaign because I thought, well, at least I can rally some of my network to give me money because it's hard when you've never made anything besides a few YouTube shorts. Why should people want to give you money? Why should they trust you?
Right.
Um, so I kind of maybe I maybe I sort of felt defeated too quickly, but I was like, I'm gonna have to raise all this money myself. So I did $100,000 Kickstarter campaign, and then I
Hmm.
knew I would probably need more if we wanted it to, you know, be the production value that I wanted. Although it was still an incredibly low budget film. So then we got some individual investors behind it, people I knew and fans, and
Hmm.
just sort of asking people for money who might be interested in getting involved in something like this. I got really good at asking people for money and
It's
hearing
a good
no a
skill.
lot, but yeah.
Yeah. There's a really nice, understated comedic tone to this film that I love that you don't see that much anymore. Were any particular filmmakers inspirations to you as you went about making your first film?
I mean, my favorite filmmaker is Todd Solondz.
Okay.
And I'm such a huge fan of the movie Happiness. So also having Dylan Baker in my film,
Yeah.
who is the star of
Very
Happiness,
different role.
very different role, thankfully,
Yeah.
thankfully. But I mean, he's such a master, and I think I just really love the tone that Todd Solondz finds in a lot of his films, and I find them so funny. I think I find them funnier than maybe the average viewer would. Like his humor, just I really get it.
Yeah.
So that could have been sort of an undercurrent. I made this web series before I made the film that was kind of
Yeah.
inspired more in like structure than in tone, but by high maintenance. Just because he's
Hmm.
going to all these different clients places and getting entered into their world, and that's what I felt like I was doing as a musician. So early on, maybe some high maintenance tonal inspirations or thematic inspirations, um,
Hmm.
and then just sort of as we were editing it, sort of feeling it as we went and making ourselves laugh and seeing what stuck and what didn't work.
You've joked about people approaching you to note your resemblance to Greta Gerwig. I think, in
Mhm.
terms of filmmaking style, there's maybe something that reminds me of her earlier work as a compliment. But it's just something that's of a specific tone and it's very character driven and New York based. What's your take on that?
I'm honored. I think I'm a little like because know that many people think I resemble her. I don't want to just quickly be like, "Well, I'm inspired by Greta Gerwig," because then it might be like,
Yeah,
"Well, just because you look like her." So, but of course, I'm such a huge Greta Gerwig fan, and that's the highest compliment. And I was a big Frances Ha fan,
yeah,
and that kind of understated New York friendship driven film was definitely
yeah.
inspirational to me.
Was it kind of intuitive to figure out how to work with comedy in the context of a film to make that work behind the camera and in calibrating your performance and helping other people work through theirs?
It was all intuitive. I mean, I didn't go to film school, and I was really just learning as I went, and all I had was a strong vision to start with that then often got, you know, turned in a different direction due to what we were working with or something better or funnier came along.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just sort of making myself laugh as I was writing it and making myself laugh as we were shooting it, and it just sort of all coming back to this sense of I could just kind of feel if we got it or not.
Yeah. You've talked about in interviews about some of the scenarios you put yourself in the film and how you're an observer of these scenarios, like you play at a proposal gone wrong, for example, just these weird character moments. I'm curious, is there a strangest gig you were booked for in real life?
Yeah. I would say the strangest one that always comes to mind is I was booked to play at a party with a string quartet, or we thought like a dinner, and then it
Hmm.
was just a couple at the dinner and the quartet, which I do
Um,
kind of have in the film as a
yeah.
situation.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Actually, I directly have it in the film as a situation, but yeah, it was just us playing in the foyer, and there was this dinner happening in the next room, and the couple would sort of come out every now and then and like watch us and then come back, go back in, and then they would like step into their hot tub right outside and then come back. And it was just this very odd, I mean, nothing weird happened to us or anything, but it was just like, really? This is what you
Yeah.
want these four strangers here entertaining you while you have this private moment? But, that was what they wanted.
It's incredible. Um,
Yeah.
as reflected in the film, you're someone who's carved out a really unique career gravitating between music, comedy, now filmmaking. I know you first tried your hand at stand up while on break from music after developing repetitive stress syndrome. But could you tell me about the process of building your career? How do you cultivate a lifestyle giving you the ability to bounce between these different creative projects? As someone also just trying to like survive in New York when you're starting out, especially.
Yeah, I guess I never was trying to cultivate this lifestyle, because what was really going on when I started stand up was I was having a real crisis of career and just thinking I wanted to completely give up music and just be like a real pure stand up comedian. I didn't have any dreams of combining music and comedy. I just wanted to learn how to tell jokes and be like the funny person on stage. I just loved watching stand up and I wanted to do that. And then kind of out of necessity, because my injury healed and it wasn't actually that dramatic, and I was able to go back to playing, and I was working a lot as a musician, because that was the work I was getting. That was how I was
Yeah.
making money. I was subbing in Broadway shows, playing weddings, like really anything that paid money. And but just still like trying to keep the comedy going, and hoping that one day I would be successful at it enough to kind of be able to just do that.
Hmm.
But in turn, as being good at comedy and succeeding in this business takes a long time. And
Hmm.
so throughout, like, just cool opportunities with music have just kept also coming up. And I'm not going to turn every opportunity down just because it's not quite in line, or maybe I should, but it's not what I've been doing. And it's led to
Yeah.
just this kind of interesting life, where
Yeah.
I'm leaving tomorrow for tour with Vampire Weekend, so I'll be with them
Yeah.
for 2 weeks
It's
overseas, and
incredible.
then back to developing a new hour in the new year, and it's just sort of how it's going.
It's crazy. In terms of your stand up, how did you figure out how to balance the comedic and musical aspects of your act? Like when the viola comes into play, and like to what extent is that in your act at this point?
Whenever I headline and do, you know, more than 30 minutes, I like to bring the viola in, just because it's something that is unique, or somewhat, I mean, there are other musical acts, but it's something that I can do that not a lot of other people are doing. And it's another sort of way to use that part of my brain on stage. There is this part of me where, like, I have trouble sticking to one mode of expression for too long. I start missing the other ones. So I think the fact that I've been able to bring music into stand up is what will keep me doing stand up for longer, because it's like I feel like I'm using everything. Like, I sing, I
Yeah.
play, am there's like, I can't feel like I'm denying myself anything besides maybe like filmmaking, but that's a whole other thing. What I will say is I always want to be able to just tell jokes. Like, that's something that's really important to me, and I don't want to just completely become a full musical act. Not because I think that there's anything wrong with that. I love really musical comedians who don't do like traditional stand up, but just because I know how much I love stand up and how important it is to me. So to keep that as a skill that I can do, and always kind of just walk into a club with just me and still like be on par with the other comedians there.
Hmm. Who are the comedians that really inspired you to get into this, and at what age?
Well, really young, I was watching a lot of George Carlin. That was the first person where, like, I was like, wow, that's incredible. Like, I never would think of doing it, but I just know that, like, when I watch this, like, I'm watching magic, and it's my favorite thing in the world to watch.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I was, still in high school, and really trying to get into a music conservatory, and that was my path that I had decided for myself. So, and I didn't see a lot of women doing comedy, and I wasn't that exposed to it. I mean, it's pretty tragic. Like, I grew not tragic, but I grew up in Lower Manhattan,
Uh-huh.
Yet I was so like sheltered and didn't see a lot of live comedy. I mean, I guess I wouldn't have been allowed in the Comedy Cellar underage, but
Yeah, yeah.
still, it just feels like I wish I
You were
had been
right
more
there.
exposed. I was right there, but I was so separate. I was just watching
Yeah,
my
yeah.
brother watch George Carlin like over his shoulder on YouTube. Um, and then, so that was always in my mind, like, oh, in another life, I'd be a comedian because that's so cool.
Yeah.
And then I think when I was in undergrad, that's when YouTube became more of a thing. Like it existed in high school, but I think comedians started putting their stuff on YouTube. Um, and so
Yeah.
I started watching more comedians and seeing a little more of a variety of it. I was like, oh, like I discovered Mitch Hedberg, which is
Mm-hmm.
so different from George Carlin, but I found him to be equally like awe-inducing, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it can be like weird little one-liners." That's
Yeah.
I could do that. That's more in my voice. I'm not like a preacher type like Carlin. So I think seeing and then seeing like Todd Barry, who has a
Yeah.
very specific delivery, and seeing all these different people be just kind of themselves was what
Yeah.
told me, okay, I could do this and be myself somehow. And maybe there's something there.
Was there a moment specifically where it clicked that you didn't want to just go down the music route purely? Because it's so interesting to go down this road of like training as a musician your entire life, making it to the upper echelon of musicians, being at Juilliard, and then after all that, you decide, I mean, I can do this, but I don't want this to be my full gig. It's like I find that really interesting. Was there a point where you decided on that, like, and you just realized you want to do different things?
Yeah, I think it was bubbling below the surface for a while, even as a teenager and younger when I was practicing every day. If I went on vacation, I would take my violin. It was violin at the time and then viola. The
Hmm.
idea of like missing a day of practice was so wild. And so I would have these fantasies of like, what if I just gave it all up? What if I just quit? But that's kind of, maybe something that everyone has, no matter if they love their
Yeah.
career or not. But that was always there. And then, and then,
Usually you just quit. You quit earlier. Like I
yeah,
played trumpet, and I was by high school. I was like, I think I'm done with this. Like,
yeah.
it was a real conversation with my parents.
Okay, but it was like an emotional, like, okay, we're giving up the trumpet now.
Yeah, I guess so. They're like, you have a gift. You should do this. And yeah, I mean, you just like kind of lean into what feels right for you, right?
Yeah, I guess it still felt like right enough that I kept going. And then as I was auditioning for music schools, for college, I was developing more and more performance anxiety. Like it actually was getting worse, not
Oh wow.
better. And I would shake, and it was just this physical manifestation that made it so hard to perform well all the time, and was really frustrating and really scary. And it was like probably even more so what made me doubt music than the injury that I experienced. I've just sort of talked about the injury in the past because I don't know why I've focused on that more, but I really struggled with performance anxiety. And just once I got to Juilliard and music was no longer my escape from my life, it was just all there was. Okay, here
Hmm.
you are. Everyone's doing music. This is what you wanted. It's all music all the time. Um, I think that paired with just me botching a lot of like auditions and competitions in school and just really letting myself and my teachers down. I mean, boy, I I was a real mess for a while. I think I just started thinking pretty early on in my undergrad, like, hmm, maybe I'll be a singer. I'm like I did opera
Yeah.
in high
Yeah,
school,
yeah.
and
And you
I
sing
could,
in this film at the end,
yeah,
right?
in the closing credits, I do.
Yeah.
um,
You're
yeah, my
good.
husband and I. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I thought, oh, maybe I could have been a singer. Maybe the shaking would manifest less with singing, and so I started thinking about all these other things I could do. So yeah, that was a long answer. The short answer is when I got to Juilliard, I started thinking maybe something else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you find there's ways in which these different aspects of your creativity feed one another? Obviously, just taking the break, like you said, and going from one to the other kind of allows you to maybe recharge your enthusiasm for one thing.
Totally, they all feed each other, and the cool thing that happened was when I started doing stand up and like starting a process of learning something again and being a beginner, I started enjoying practicing viola more because I like restored my faith in a process again. And even though I think ultimately like what your career is what suffering you're willing to put up with the most. And for me, like I'm willing to bomb on a stage, I guess, and I'm willing to do what comedy requires, which is like traveling to like weird cities and bombing and like just really doing like writing every day, all that stuff. I'm willing to put up with it. I think the career of a musician, I'm just, even though I will find like great relief or great inspiration and joy from like the act of playing music still, the career itself is something I know I just like couldn't put up with for that long if I was only doing that.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But they all feed each other in terms of just like my artistic like existence, you know, and my creative whatever it is that I'm feeding every day to
Yeah.
feel like life is worth living, you know?
You've said in interviews that your transition into the world of stand-up could be a film of its own. What do you think that would be like if you made it? What would you want to talk about? Because that's another interesting topic for sure.
Yeah, it would probably be an exploration of like the creative process, and I'd probably want the larger theme to be, because I think all humans deal with this in some way of kind of finding what you're most what just brings you the most joy every day, and like facing the truth of like maybe having to give certain things up that meant a lot to you at one point and sort of moving on.
Hmm.
um So I think it would deal a lot with just this idea of being a creative and finding the parallels. Like you'd probably be seeing like the parallels of what she's struggling with in music come back around in comedy to sort of be like, haha, you can't escape. Like I'm very into like, you know, there's no
That's
escaping the
good.
suffering and the
That's good.
demons. But
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's a good. You got a good arc there. So you taped your first hour special earlier this summer, right?
in late May, yeah, right before the summer.
Yeah. So where did you do that? What were you talking about? Tell me about the experience of going through that.
Yeah, I did it at the Bitter End in the West Village, which felt appropriate for me, just having grown up near there. It's like a real legendary music venue. My musical ties. My dad's a jazz sax player. It just felt kind of like home,
Yeah.
even though I'd never performed there before, but it felt right. And I mean, it's weird doing your first stand-up special. I feel like a lot of comedians will say this. It's like all your jokes from the last 10 years, basically, or all the ones that stuck with you and were good enough, because it takes that long to get
Wow.
good, to learn how to write a joke, to have that much material. So it's kind of, for me, it was, if I'm being really honest, I mean, I wasn't trying to have like a theme in terms of what I was talking about. It was just like, what are the jokes that I have that are good enough, and how can I put them in a cohesive order and
Hmm.
also have it lead into the music, which it does about like a quarter of the way or halfway in. Like it starts
Hmm.
as just a normal stand-up special, and then the viola comes out, and then the viola doesn't go back away. Like it's there for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Leads into playing and singing and more playing. And I guess an overall theme is like consciousness, just because I experiment a lot with like length of playing and like what people are going through if I play for longer than expected, and then I sort of play with that.
Hmm.
um, but it's weird because then the next special, it's like you probably do it in like 2 years. So like the first
Yeah.
special is like 10 years of work, and then the next one's like a much more, okay, I got my rhythm, I know kind of my thing. Let's get
Hmm.
another hour of jokes in there. So I'm curious
Yeah.
what doing the second one will be like. But the first one was really just piecing together everything I had. Um,
Yeah. Well, how would you describe what your ambitions are as a stand-up?
I just want to be, I mean, the practical thing is I want to be able to sell tickets, but that's because I
Hmm.
want to keep being able to do stand up.
Hmm.
Because for me, the joy is just going into a room that's full of people who want to laugh and getting to play with them and play with your ideas. And I love the actual process of it. I love recording the sets and listening back and then having that moment where something, oh, that's the, you know, and some of my best jokes are these jokes that I had that were like, I cannot crack this. Like, I know this is funny, but it's just kind of a lame joke right now. And then just
Yeah.
doing it over and over for months or even years, finally something clicks. And that's the best
Hmm.
feeling in the world. So I just want to keep having this process of discovery as a comedian, but I also want to be able to make a living doing it, which means like, you
Hmm.
start wanting other types of success that can then help like sustain you as a comedian.
Yeah. 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 You've talked in the past about how much of stand up now has become promoting your work alongside working on new material. Are there any tricks you've discovered for yourself in helping you to manage that side of your business? I don't know if you have anyone you work with on that kind of stuff, but it seems like a huge burden, to be honest.
It's a huge burden. I've gone through phases of posting a lot of clips and it works. Like I get more followers and anytime I do a show now, there's a lot of people there who come up and say that they found me on Instagram. So I'm like, well, shoot, like guess I got to keep doing it. Um but I'm in a weird spot. I think once I have the special ready and because I've been holding on to a lot of material. Some stuff I've posted before and it's in the special and whatever, but there's a significant portion that I've not wanted to share because I want it to
Hmm.
be new in the special.
Yeah.
So now that it's officially done and recorded, I'm excited to put it out there and clip it up and be able to sort of like even push harder on the social media sharing the special just so that I can maybe get more butts and seats for the next
Yeah.
hour.
Totally.
So it's weird. Like maybe I'll try to hire someone to help me with that. I mean, it's not I sometimes I think about this so much and I go back and forth from just like it's so annoying that artists have to do this, but also there is such a roadmap for it. So
Yeah.
if you're a comedian or someone whose art is clippable, it is kind of great.
Yeah.
And if
It's
you
just
have a
manual labor.
workflow, it's just manual labor. It's just being organized about it, which I haven't been in the past. I've been very like manic and frantic, and I'll go through phases where I'm just it's all consuming because I'm very like OCD and I'm making sharing all the clips myself, and that's probably what inspired me to like write that piece that people have shared around about that I wrote on my Substack. I was feeling very like, what am I haven't like listened back to a set in a month. What am I even doing?
Hmm. Yeah. So you've had a really wild, enviable summer. You mentioned touring with Vampire Weekend. How did that come about? And what is that like? That just seems otherworldly.
It is otherworldly. I'm not used to performing for crowds that big.
Yeah.
They're not there for me, but I'm still on stage experiencing the energy. And sometimes I'll put myself in a space where I'm like, okay, well, pretend the energy is for you. And like, what physicality would you inhabit for this? And like, why don't you use this as like a learning process to sort of get your energy on stage to be a little more honed in and fine-tuned and maybe bigger, broader than you're used to as a comedian who mostly stands still in the center of a stage for like, no more than 100 people.
Hmm.
Um, and then I had to learn all these songs that and play from memory, that's not a thing I usually
Oh, wow.
do. I mean, I play from memory in my stand-up act, but I've played with a lot of bands before, but I get hired to show up and read down a chart with like a
Sure.
string quartet and just play. We don't even need to rehearse, honestly. Like we can read so well that it's just like, just bring us in, play through the song once, we got it. But this is like, I'm actually like a member of the band that's like coming in and out and have my own parts
Hmm.
and things. And I'm
Right.
supposed to be like really, really familiar with the materials. That was kind of a learning curve. And it happened pretty last minute. The band became sort of suddenly in need of someone to play violin, which is also funny because now I'm playing violin again. When I spent so much time telling people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You're always correcting people about playing viola.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all who you know, and so I'll just be transparent. The reason the band knows me is because my husband plays with them, and I
Okay.
had I had joined the band for like late night appearances in the way that I was
Yeah.
used to, where they would just bring me in either as a singer or as a string player because they wanted to do something special for like their SNL or their Tonight Show appearance or whatever. But then they were like, well, we need actually a violinist to go on tour with us. Can Isabel do this? And I
Yeah.
was like, well, the movie will have premiered and I'll have had taped my special. So actually, it's kind of perfect timing. So that's what I'm doing.
Incredible. Yeah, I was shocked one night. I'm watching SNL and I noticed you in the background performing, and that just blew my mind a little bit because I knew you as a comic. Um, Obviously, I knew about your musical background, but you never hear the experience of artists who come in to support in this kind of way, especially with something like SNL that's so huge. Like, what is that like?
Well, it was just cool to see the studio. I mean, I think I would have gotten almost as much of a thrill just being an audience member, just because like you don't realize what it's like until you're there. It's like really small.
Tiny.
Yeah, it's tiny. And I remember I always watched at home and been like, how are they getting all these different sets? And so to see it in action was like very satisfying and like, oh, that's how they do it. Okay, it's like all these backdrops that they just like wheel in and out, and they use different parts of the room for different sketches. Like it's not always on
Hmm.
the same stage
Yeah,
facing
yeah.
the same place. So that was interesting. Um and then yeah, getting to like be on it and then go see myself on it later was like surreal. Uh
Yeah. Do you rehearse like
yeah,
a lot?
we I guess we came in like during the week to rehearse, and we had also just the hired musicians had met up beforehand also for like a little rehearsal. So it wasn't extensive or anything, but we did like meet up. We rehearsed during the week, and I think they maybe do camera blocking or something. And then there's the dress
Yeah.
rehearsal, and then so you get a bunch of times doing it.
How have you acclimated? I mean, you've talked about performance anxiety, I think here, and then also just in your other work. You've been open about that. So, how have you kind of acclimated to the pressure of something like that, or being in the pit for a Broadway musical? Like, these are really crazy experiences to be a part of, and it seems like that would be something you have to adapt to.
Yeah, it's all constant adapting. I've also just grown and developed as a person. So I think some of my anxiety has been maybe, I won't say cured, but maybe shifted to other things. so,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's not as prevalent with my playing now. All the different situations have different reasons that I'm anxious. Like for a Broadway show, if you're subbing, which I was doing, you actually don't ever get to rehearse. You go
Hmm.
in, you sit there with the music. It's called watching the book, and you just sort of like sit through a show, and then you go home and practice. And then the first time playing the show is a real show. So that's like vomit inducing. Um, but also like I'm concentrating too hard to even get nervous. It's like a different kind of just hyper concentration once I'm in there.
Hmm.
Whereas like weird random stuff like playing solo Bach at a nursing home for some people who just want to hear music, well, like I'll suddenly like, because I don't know, it'll just kind of like come at random moments.
Yeah.
Um, and then for playing with Vampire Weekend, like there's some really featured moments for the violin, and it's like a huge stage. But I think I almost I think at this point I'm like you don't get to be nervous. Like that you there is no time or room for that. Like you got to just
Yeah.
go. So it's but it's every time is different. It's a everything is always a wonderful surprise getting in there and just sort of dealing with it. But I think I've just also through stand up you get to perform so much. You're performing if you're really in the thick of it like three, 4 times a night. So the muscle of just being on stage has also just been flexed a lot more for me since like graduating from music conservatory. So I
Hmm.
think that's also a big part of it. I'm just a little more used to like, all right, this is what we're doing. Turn it on and go. You know.
Yeah. Well, one of the other really cool things you got to do earlier this year is some kind of 24-hour play or musical conceived by Jesse Eisenberg, right? Who was
Yeah, that
fresh off
was
of these Oscar nominations for A Real Pain. How did that happen? What was that like? That's nuts.
yeah. I guess so. These 24-hour plays is this wonderful, I guess, organization. I think they're raising money for good stuff. I should know more, but I know it's good, and I think they do these things throughout the year or once a year, and then other people in other places can kind of take the blueprint for the 24-hour play slash musical thing and do it themselves. I met someone at Tribeca Festival who said that they were doing it in a few days, and I was like, I want to do that. And they just put me in touch with the person because I guess they needed more performers. So it was totally just,
Wow.
again, knowing something, just said, oh, can I jump in? And then I got so lucky that, the play I got cast in was with Rachel Dratch and written by
Yeah.
Jesse Eisenberg, and it was it's weird. I'm really not trained in musical theater. I'm a singer and I guess an actor. So I figured it out, but it was very much like another sort of new thing that I just jumped into. And again, I
Yeah.
think because we were still just like memorizing the songs that day and learning it all in a minute. I didn't have time to really feel nervous. It was just like, all right, just like you have to remember everything you're supposed to do right now. And it was like a checklist. And that kept me from. So it's really like more anxiety inducing situations are almost less anxiety inducing because it's like,
Hmm.
it's almost a given. Like, it's like, of course you're nervous. This is like a wild thing to be doing. Whereas
Yeah.
like back at Juilliard, I'd be playing my recital that I've been practicing for 6 months. And here's this
Hmm.
big moment. It's only happening once. And then like the idea that there's just so much pressure and expectation that I think I would just go nuts in my head and shake a
Yeah.
bunch.
I know you'd made a web series before on a string, and then you get this great reception for the film. Did it stoke your interest in filmmaking even more?
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to keep making stand-up specials and films and
Hmm.
just sort of alternate and that's my ambition. I just want to keep making things and then performing. But I love all the aspects of filmmaking. I love the different roles you can play. I probably wouldn't want to do like all of them every time like I did for On a String.
Yeah.
That was more out of necessity, but I love it, and I love screenwriting, and I learned all these new things that I love doing. So
Do you know what you're going to do in terms of distribution for the film?
no, we
That's the
we're
hard part.
we're figuring that out, but we're playing some more festivals, and we'll see. It's just a waiting game, and fingers crossed,
Yeah,
praying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else coming up that you would want to flag? Anything else interesting you're doing?
I think that's about it.
That's a good amount.
Yeah, keep an eye out for the special, and then On a String, which maybe there'll be some sort of release around the same time, so the two could feed each other because they are kind of both me at a certain point in my life, like a certain point of expression. So I think they
Hmm.
would fit nicely together. Um, and then yeah, in January, I think I'm just gonna hit the road again and get back to it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, truly, the film is really wonderful. I'm a big admirer of everything you do, and it's quite an interesting career you've carved out for yourself. So, congratulations, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course.
It's really nice.